All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of current conversations. And today I have the wonderful Daniel Cray on from Phizz. And before we get into the conversation, just a quick comment on the format again. Personally, I'm a podcast lover, and sometimes I just wish that I could interrupt with my own questions or with my own comments and have people answer them. So that's exactly the idea behind this here. So if you do have any questions, if you have any comments, just put them in the comment section and we're going to see if we can answer them. Obviously, if you ask us for the reason of being alive, it might be a difficult one, but every other question we're going to try and answer. So welcome to Daniel.
Thanks, Joel.
To have you.
Likewise. Wish we were in Berlin right now, doing this over a beer, but this will be nice.
Exactly. So we got used to this over COVID, right? Maybe to get started, do you want to give a quick introduction to what Phizz is all about, what you do, and
sure.
Take it from there?
Absolutely. So Phizz, we're focusing on the vital role that hydration and electrolytes play in daily well-being, aiming to revolutionize these hydration practices. So, we're looking at emphasizing that importance of hydration, particularly electrolytes, in everything from energy, focus, mood, and immune strength. The body relies on proper hydration. And I guess you can kind of think of it quite simply is that there's this old Snickers ad that you're not you when you're hungry. And quite similarly, I guess you're not you when you're dehydrated. So beyond water, electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium play a crucial role in everything from nerve function, muscle movement, maintaining fluid, and energy processes. So it's basically stripping it back. It's one of the most simple biohacks you can do to feel your best every day. And that's what we're kind of focusing in on and trying to upgrade everyone's daily lives with proper hydration. And
that's fantastic.
On the business, we're the fastest growing brand in the UK. You'll find us in places like Boots, Sainsbury's, Tesco, Amazon. So if you haven't tried us, people who are tuning into this, I hope you do go and support us after this and give us a try.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year because I still remember when when we
all right, that's my plug. That's my plug over with, mate. It's all CleanHub now.
Yeah, exactly. Because the time really flew by fast. I think we met the first time in April or May in London, and it feels like ever since my LinkedIn was filled with a lot of positive news around Phizz, and now that Christmas is around the corner, it's also obviously always the time to reflect a little bit. And I don't know, to me it feels like time flies a lot in startup land, and I'd be curious of how you deal with that.
Yeah, I think when we did meet in April, I think, and we actually met through LinkedIn. I came across you guys and your story. A couple of companies working like Grind with CleanHub, and you caught my eye, and I sort of kept a tab on you for a little while, and then saw you were doing a cleanup in London. So thought I'd just, with no pretense of having a relationship ongoing, just wanted to sort of mystery shop you guys and sort of check you out and sort of join that. So it's kind of fitting that we're here on LinkedIn, because I guess this kind of all was born.
This is where it started.
That platform as well. And it's good to know that the algorithm's working and the marketing team's doing their job, because apparently you're constantly bombarded with our news, which is, like you say, it's been a wild year, and slowing down is not really part of our mantra, but it is pretty chaotic at times. I guess we talk. I talk a lot about startups, but my partner's in a law firm, and she definitely works longer hours than I do. So I think it's not. I think people can get a bit holed up in the idea of being an entrepreneur, thinking it's the only job in the world that you work long hours. But
that's definitely not true.
It's definitely not true. But it can be a bit of organized, or attempting to be organized, chaos. And I think to the team that works in Phizz, it's full guns blazing all the time. So it is nice every now and then to sort of strip back. And even yesterday, one of the team members and I went and did a sound bath, which I don't know if you know what that is, but it's you basically very similar setup to a yoga class, but you lay down, and there's the instructor who basically bangs a gong and other musical instruments and sort of relaxes the mind and body, which is a bit different to begin with, but I can kind of guarantee you that it's a good way to sort of have a bit of a distracted meditation. So yeah, I liked it, and I hope Jacob did as well.
Yeah, I think for me the crazy part about it is, right, there's this article that startup equals growth, and you are usually then growing quite quick if you are on the right track, obviously, and that just means that a lot of stuff happens within 1 year. It's like a lot of relationships are being built, and that can sometimes be quite overwhelming. And then if you have these little downtimes, that's the piece that really helps, because I mean, I absolutely love every single part of building a company and this variety of activities that it brings, but no day is like the other. So yeah, these little winding down things really help in building the right habits around that.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and I think maybe that's something in startup life that is a bit different. Is day to day is usually quite different, and year on year is drastically different. Like I was having breakfast with our sales director the other day, and we were saying that I can't believe how much the last 3 years have flown by. But I think part of that comes down to every year, if you look at like how the business was, what stores we were sold in, the packaging we were in, down to how we market, like everything was so different year on year that I think it almost feels like a new company each year, just by nature of the size of the team and everything that comes with it. So it's that maybe is one way that keeps it feeling fresh and different constantly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same at CleanHub. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean the other part is, if so much around you is happening, right, you also get kind of addicted to that news. And me, for one, for example, I always check my phone first thing in the morning, and I know that this is a horrible habit. And I heard that you have a little trick around that. How you change that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything crazy, but it's the attempt to not, like, at least for half an hour in the morning, not to be on my phone, and whether that's putting it across the other side of the room, and have the alarm go off and make me get out of bed, and then just leave the phone in that room. But yeah, I like to get up and do some stretching and have sort of 30 minutes without my phone, and whether that's reading a book or doing a little bit of yoga. Like, it doesn't always happen, but yeah, I think it's nice. And I've been toying with the idea of trying to get like an unsmart phone, but I just don't know if I could. I mean, even when I travel for holidays, I still always kind of find myself a bit connected to the business, but it seems like a good idea in theory to sort of dumb down my connectivity on holiday.
Yeah, because it's hard to stick to these rules that you set for yourself, right? I actually got one of those dumb phones. There's a new OS.
Oh, did you?
I think it's not new. It's called KaiOS, the operating system, and it's basically one of these old flip phones. But it broke once I got it. So I'm still on the iPhone. But the beauty is, like, you still have things like WhatsApp. You still have Google Maps. You still have a tool for podcasting, which is quite nice.
Okay.
But the UX of the entire thing is so horrible that which is a good thing in my eyes. So the design is doing a great job there, because it's so horrible to use that thing that it takes the entire fun out of it, right? So you stop building that habit of constantly checking and going on different apps and different whatever. It takes forever to type a message because it's still with T9 and you have these little buttons that you have to press. So you just do a lot less with it. At least that was my thought. I don't know, because I never really got into using it. I need to order a new one, I guess, or have it repaired. So
yeah, well, I'd be interested to know if you use it a few times, if it's worth it. I mean, I have thought about that. Like, it's difficult when you travel. You still want to have some level of internet, like especially map. I think maps for me would be the big one. But it is a nice experience sometimes when I go somewhere, and if I don't have the roaming on for my phone, I deliberately will have it on airplane mode. So other than being in a Wi-Fi environment, it means most of the day I get to not have it, which is genuinely nice. But
Yeah.
difficult. But anyway, solve
Uh,
one problem at a time.
But yeah, it's like maybe shifting gears a little bit. You mentioned that you're the fastest growing brand in the UK. Does that count for your category or overall?
I wish it was overall in the whole of the country, but we're very happy with just our category.
Okay.
We've shot up to being the number 3 effervescent brand in the country. So it would
Oh,
be
wow.
Barocca, Science and Sport, and then we're just on their tails,
Yeah.
which is a big jump from us. In the last 12 months, we were 7th before that. So we've had a skyrocket up in terms of growth, and we're also not only climbing up that category, but we are outside of the main leader. We are growing the category the most. So I think this is an interesting category to be playing in terms of health, but also when we see it, we're looking at us as a evolution or a future iteration of how beverage market can be away from one-time use drinks, and we're in dissolvable drinks. So in your space, initially we didn't set the business up as eco warriors to try and save the planet, but we're very much in a space that does naturally minimize consumption. And I think that hasn't historically in this category been a growth space as to why someone might be attracted to it. But in the new age of people being more sustainably focused, it is definitely a reason to be looking at minimizing consumption of one-time use drinks and using something like us, which has better function anyway. And we back ourselves on flavor and taste. So we believe that actually from a palatability, it's drastically improved upon the category in general.
And do you think that this is part of the reason for the fast growth? Obviously, I'm not asking to give away your secret sauce of why things happen in the way they happen, but it's always great to learn how all that change happened to be.
Yeah, look, I definitely think so. I think we are part of the process of bringing about change of new people into this category who wouldn't have necessarily shopped it before. And I think we're also riding a bit of a wave of consumer habits of, take, for example, rewind 10 years ago, people were probably more inclined to buy a one-time use bottle of water, whereas now you walk around and everyone's got a Chili's bottle or something like that. And yet people still are looking and are drawn to the idea of having flavor and having more function out of something that water alone won't provide. So that's where we really kick in and sort of providing health and performance benefits, but we can be pairing with a more sustainable choice of putting it into your own glass or water bottle. So
because when I see these bottles with the tablets, right, I always have to think back to when I was visiting, for example, my grandparents growing up. They always had this vitamin C or something, some of these tablets in there, which quite frankly also tasted horrible. And now we have your product, and we tried it, and we have it next to the water dispenser in the office for people to try. And how did you go about taking like this established concept basically of adding it into something and building a proper brand around it? How long have you been in business? How difficult has all of this been?
Okay, so it has been almost 8 years now. So it's not been an overnight success, and it's still, it's
rarely
still
is right.
Yeah, but I guess it all commenced from learning that when you're flying, you lose 1 liter of water every 5 hours, and that to me was a rude awakening of understanding how dehydration depletes your energy, your focus, your overall health, and just that there was a lack of understanding around that role of hydration and electrolytes in health routines. It's just incredible. And typically the effervescent products that your grandmother may take or grandparents or people still take today that haven't evolved, they are vitamin-led products, and they can be a good source of micronutrients, and they are encouraging you to drink a glass of water, which is a positive step for hydration. But from our perspective, we go further than that by adding in a hydration formula which helps you increase the amount of water you're taking a lot faster, and we're replacing all your electrolytes that you'd lose out through sweat. So we're basically hybriding variable product categories together into one convenient solution. And then from a flavor perspective, again, historically, this space, if you look at the heritage brands, they see it as a bit indifferent to popping a pill, in that you don't worry about flavor so much. And yes, they have flavors associated with them, but they're not usually that great in taste, and they're not usually natural colors or flavors. And we've put a lot of work into it over the years to develop good flavors, which, especially when you're dealing with electrolytes, which are, rehydration salts, is an interesting challenge. But we time and time again get a lot of positive feedback for the great taste that we have. And there's
which is, by the way, very true. I tried the product and it does taste great. So,
thank you. I mean, flavor is always going to be subjective, and that's why we have different flavors.
Yeah.
And some people will always still prefer something else to drink than another product or brand. But for us, it's a function is absolutely why we started it, but flavor was a very important piece that we didn't just let happen and didn't care about, but well, people will pinch their nose and just throw this back anyway. So.
No, that's fantastic. So it always starts with a great product, right? And then you mentioned that you didn't start out as eco warriors trying to reduce like the amount of single-use bottles used, and in the beginning that probably was not necessarily a side effect, but from our conversations that we had and when we also met in person, it seems like you personally care a lot about that topic, right? And I get that question a lot, that people ask, it's like, okay, but what's the return on investment of investing in sustainability? And I think in the first place, if you ask the question, you already lost, because the consumer will smell it a mile away if you do sustainability because you want to drive either bottom or top line. And if you do it out of conviction that it's just the right thing to do, it comes way more naturally. And maybe we can talk a bit about how you think about the challenges that also come with running a consumer good brand in regards to sustainability, shifting mindsets.
Definitely. I mean, I'll echo what I said before, in that we didn't start this business to save the planet. Like, that wasn't our main mission, but I think we were inherently wanting to do better along the way than those who were already in the market and existed. And we would often be making decisions that we would never really take public, just because we thought they were the right thing to do. So for instance, in our category, typically these products come in secondary plastic, in a plastic tray, in a shrink wrap. And we said goodbye to that and changed that to cardboard. We didn't communicate that to anyone at the time because, it just wasn't, it wasn't that important to us in our marketing mix compared to other things that we thought we needed to talk about. But it's something that we did. And definitely now we're more conscious about this, and we do talk about it because we think, it's worth letting people know that we are making these decisions, which sometimes is at cost to us, but it's trying to do better than what's already done. So even, for instance, like the market leader it's in a tube like us, but then sits in a bigger box to have more shelf space. And so when you're walking through a retail shop, you can see it easier. Now we could easily put the product in a secondary box that's bigger to look, catch more eyes, but we choose not to.
No.
And that's a conscious decision for us to do. But I think to do something like that flies in the face of, I guess, the other side of the coin, which is we think that this product category should be a bit of a beacon towards minimizing consumption.
Well, that makes total sense. And I was always wondering why people use these secondary boxes. In some cases, I learned it is because you are mandated to put certain product information on the packaging, and if the product is very small, then it's not enough space. Which in your case, and in your competitor's case, right, is more or less probably going to be.
It's I tell you what, we have the main product format that we have is a 20 tube of tablets, and we also have we used to, and we still do in some places, we have a smaller tube of 10, trying to consolidate all your information that's mandatory onto that packaging, whilst trying also to keep a nice clean face aesthetic at the front. Very difficult. So yes, sometimes there is a space challenge, but I think we've shown that it's a challenge you can overcome.
And I think when we spoke about alternative packaging methodologies, right, what I find always interesting is how much thought actually needs to go into choosing the right packaging. And I was speaking to another Dan actually a while ago, and he's a packaging technologist, and he brought up this fantastic framework of looking at things where packaging is there to protect preserve and promote the product in the end. And then if you have these three elements, then you try to find the perfect case. And I heard that you were looking at another packaging material as well, but it would have probably by now, it's like if you use alternative packaging material, it does help to promote a product more, but there's two other dimensions that you have to look at, right? Maybe you can take me through that challenge or that instance a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, continuing down that line of being a category leader in the sustainability space, I think the natural, we're kind of taking these steps of, yes, we're in a space that's minimizing consumption. We want to take that further, so we're improving our secondary packaging. We're also partnering with someone like CleanHub to be offsetting and making sure that we're a plastic positive brand. The natural progression then is to look at the primary packaging and see what we can be doing to improve that. Now, since we started this business and when we initially started it, there was no alternative at all. And that was not from the tube providers that we worked with to all around the world, and this be something we check in on year. There is now some improving technology, getting like an algae-based derived plastic alternative. Yet the challenge with that is its shelf life is drastically reduced from what we have now, and it's extremely high cost. So if we were to even consider swapping over that, the consumer impact would be huge and would completely turn our business model upside down, that we would probably die a quick death. But I think what gets exciting is that, like, if you wind the clock back 18 months ago, that didn't even exist. So I think for a small business like ours, it's not viable. And even for big multinationals, they're not. I don't see them swapping to it. But the consumer demand and behaviors is there that it's getting this technology looked at, refined and improved. And then I guess it becomes a question of production and scaling as to how that cost can come down to make it actually viable. And by all means, maybe there might be someone who pops up and sells a £30 effervescent, and people will part ways for that. But from how we're built and what we can offer, that it's not possible for us to do that. But it's exciting that it feels like there's change afoot and it could be coming. So
and I think doubling down on that point of shelf life, right? Why that is so important. I think what people sometimes forget is to look at the entire life cycle of a product, and packaging is part of that. But the worst thing that can basically happen is that you produce a product which never comes to the consumer, which never is consumed for the reason that it was produced for, right? And if you suddenly have short shelf life and have to throw it away, the entire carbon that went into it, including the other packaging, is in the end wasted. Plus,
exactly. And dealing with retailers, they all have expectations around having a minimum length of shelf life for packaging. So, if that's cut down to a mere few months, then you're almost in a perishable goods space, but you're in a format that is, a slower selling space and housing a lot more product in one package. So it doesn't quite work at the moment. But if we were to have done this call 3 years ago, we wouldn't even be talking about this as a possibility. So I think that's
exactly the exciting part, right? Because now suddenly there's something new on the table, and you can look at it and you can look at the pros and the cons, right? Because on the flip side, just because it is based out of algae, things like recyclability of that material also need to be taken into account. Obviously, it is great that we're cutting out virgin oil, right, and build it off of something else. But again, even that piece of packaging has its own life cycle that needs to be looked at and seen, okay, how much energy do we actually need to produce that? Is it recyclable? Can there be a second life? And I think that's the thing that more and more consumers are now waking up to, because we get a better understanding of what sustainability, if we even want to call it that way, actually means. And it is looking at the entire life cycle and see what's the impact of it. And another point that I wanted to look at is then, especially since, you are growing very, very quickly, but you started out as a small business, right? And what I find interesting is that as a small business, usually you are also open for more innovation and more maybe because it's easier to implement, maybe also because it's a way to set yourself apart from the market and promote something new. Where else do you see the advantage of actually being a small business?
Well, I guess,
or smaller. I mean, you're pretty big now. But
no. I mean, we're definitely still classed as a small business and startup for sure. I guess it depends in how we'd frame that answer in terms of as to, like, I guess a good example is that why we partnered with yourselves is, you know, we joined forces with CleanHub in July, and you know, we've helped now, I think it's over 5,000 kilos of plastic waste collection, which is great. But I think it's that idea of you know, the collaboration with many small brands and businesses. And I know you work with some larger brands as well, but I think a lot of the partners that you have are sort of small to medium businesses. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have now collected over 7 million kilos of waste.
Yep.
So, you know, is Phizz, you know, has that, we've contributed to that 7 million on a smaller level, and only in the last 6 months, but collectively we are all having quite a sizable impact. And I think that is the power, I guess, of small business. And actually something that I didn't really fully appreciate when I started this was, I always thought small businesses would kind of be a bit, you know, solely focused on their internals and their own space and just wanting to sort of make sure that they succeed and sort of everybody else can get lost and I just need to focus on mine. But actually the community of small businesses is genuinely pretty welcoming and supportive of others. And this is a great example of getting on board with, you know, it could be a consumer advantage in some ways, but people are very welcoming of like other competitors joining into a collaboration like this, because it's all for a greater good. And you know, individually, my business is not going to change the world on the sustainability front at the scale it's on now, but collectively, we're having a huge level of impact, which I, for one, is I'm enthused that, you know, we do our small bit, and that, along with hundreds of others of small bits, adds up to a big bit.
No, and I think that there were two things also mentioned earlier, right, that are very much playing into that. Is like on a year-by-year basis, change is incredible on a day-to-day also already, but on a year-to-year basis. And the other point is that you didn't start out that business to, as you say, save the world, but now consumers are waking up to the fact that, okay, if I want to bring down my plastic consumption, basically use a reusable bottle. And being a small business also means that you started the business because you think that the existing industry didn't serve a certain consumer level well. And I think what gives me a lot of hope is that I think more and more consumers want to make the right choice, want to consume the right way, want to leave a better planet, and change their their behaviors to a certain degree, and then rather buy from a smaller company that aligns with their values, as long as they keep these values, right? As long as you feel that this is truly something that I can identify with. And then suddenly a big growth story can happen as more and more people change their thinking into exactly that piece, right? I mean,
I think a great example of that is someone like a Sainsbury's. They have a future brands program, and they are a team that exists exclusively to try and bring challenger brands onto shelf and support them on that journey. So I think that is a great initiative of them having that priority of like, we wanting to have mission-led brands, disruptive brands come in because the consumer behavior is, they know that there's a customer that's looking for that. And whilst it could easily be sort of looked over because of bigger budgets coming from multinationals, they want to champion that. And I think that is a great way to get a head start in the UK retail space. And yes, something I'll always be forever grateful for them giving us our first national distribution.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. I mean, they're also waking up to the fact, right, that there's a new mindset coming. And
exactly. It's beneficial to them, but it doesn't mean that even if there's an opportunity, someone, you know, it's that, you know, that triangle of like consumer behavior leads to, you know, whether it's corporation change.
Leads to legislation. Exactly.
It all, once it starts benefiting everyone, then everybody gets in sync and in line. But it still takes those pins to knock down to actually start to happen. So whilst yes, Sainsbury's definitely will benefit from it, I think we're not seeing every retailer with a similar kind of initiative yet. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of power in such communities in starting, right, and putting the first foot on the ground, and then start walking, start building. I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, currently we're at 7 million kilogram collected. If you compare that to the total plastic volume out there, right, and then to compare that to the total pollution that is out there that still needs to be managed, we're still at the very, very beginning. But at the same time, there's now almost 250, 300, mostly small businesses that are making that decision and that want to participate to the mission of CleanHub then as well. And it shows that growth is possible, right? In the beginning on small levels, and then suddenly it becomes something bigger.
And I think yes, you're talking on like overall mission of plastic reduction and removal, but I think the thing that can often be looked over with a partnership with someone like you guys is that the waste management systems and beach cleanups that you're doing has a huge benefit to local communities in other parts of the world. So I think you're improving environments and lives for people out in different parts of the world that otherwise wouldn't have it. So I think that shouldn't be forgotten, because even if you can only be helping certain areas, when the alternative is not, we talked about this. We talked about this a lot. So it's a very easy decision to make when your other side of the coin is just to do nothing.
No, exactly.
And I think historically the decision's been easy to not do anything, whereas I feel like now it's there's enough reasons to make it very easy to try and do something.
No, absolutely. And the other thing that is happening as well, right? It's like we are in the end becoming more and more brands on one platform, and as innovation starts to happen, right? It's like if, for example, there's algae packaging would already work, would show that it's the better option than everything else. It's also much easier to educate a wider market in a short amount of time and bring change into the industry, and also learn from each other, which is one of the reasons why we also want to do more of the events like we did back in London, to also connect with other people from the industry and learn from what they looked at.
You can have your own iteration of COP28 in Berlin.
Yeah, exactly. without the oil and gas lobby.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, but I think that is not something. I think we've enjoyed the idea of being a part of a community, although we don't necessarily feel like. I think at the moment something like this, and I think that aspiration of maybe making it more of a community within that space is not a bad idea to sort of knowledge share, and I think that would be quite exciting to see how CleanHub could maybe facilitate some of that. But I guess you're a startup as anyone, and you're building and growing and seeing where you kind of channel your energy and focus. So
that's true. I see we have one comment, because we're also getting towards the end of it, that we should definitely pick up. It's been up there a while. I think it's a question to you.
I don't get to see this. So this is all on you.
Alice is asking, with your subscriptions, would that be an option for shorter shelf life packaging? I think he gives the answer to himself to some degree, but maybe you have a different opinion.
Having two product packages. Okay, I can see it now. Alice, I couldn't see this before. It's only just been shared with me. I'm not hiding from the question, but then yeah, I guess exactly that. Like we would have to go about a setup of going to a whole new supplier for packaging to then have that retro fitted into our existing manufacturing, and you would be doing that for then not a retail-led product, but for a D2C-led product. And to be frank, we're not a D2C-led brand. We obviously have our website and have a level of sales through there, so we could. I mean, yes, we could look at doing a test run of something like this and trying to get it in on a lower level production as a test run and sell something on our website at a cost that we could break even at. But I think that whole project for a small business like ours would take a lot of team time, effort, and energy for a small commercial return, which can sound kind of harsh towards it being, for a greater longer term good, but we don't always have the privilege of doing that if it's going to cost us to be keeping ahead of a break-even state. It's a business that's trying to survive as well whilst we grow. So I think it's not something at the moment that we look at based on what it is, but that tech is something that seems to be improving, and we'll definitely be keeping close tabs on to one we can actually sort of scale us up.
Plus, what I could also imagine is like you would need to the company that's packaging the final good into the pack, right? They would need to play along as well. And I'm always surprised when I speak to companies that produce goods, how much complexity is behind that and how much complexity also is involved in packaging change, for example. It's crazy.
Yeah, it can take a while. And it's something that we've looked at over the last year and tried to simplify and streamline as much as we can, which we've made improvements in. But yeah, the sort of behind the scenes, there's quite a lot of moving parts and variable suppliers that all have to kind of come together and fit onto, even as simple as, when you look at an effervescent tablet, typically when we first started, we thought, okay, well, we'll make one that has a tablet size that fits in like any bottle. Because typically they are bigger than what fits into a bottle. But there's only a few people around the world who make these types of products, and their machines are all calibrated to doing a certain tablet size and shape, and it's just, unless you were to go invest millions into your own production facilities, it just doesn't happen. So it's okay now because everyone's using reusable bottles, which has a bigger opening, so we fit.
That's exactly the way to go.
Yeah.
Daniel, it was fantastic talking to you. Again, I learned a lot of the complexities of running a business like yours and about the decisions that are and sit behind the business. I'm super happy that we are partnered up with on cleaning up, and looking forward to many more conversations, and hopefully I get to go to London again soon.
Let me know when you're next in London, and to whoever's listening, thanks very much for tuning in and keeping an eye on both the CleanHub and the Phizz story. I think both are worth continuing to follow and support for a lot of reasons. So to anyone who is a customer of ours, thank you for the support. We are still very much a small business, Joel. We need everyone's help, and so does CleanHub. So thanks very much for listening.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks, Joel.
Talk to you soon.
Good luck next week.
Thank you. Bye.